Today, I want to talk about a small thing that made a big change in my life. I'm Joanne, and one of the things I like to talk about is getting your life organized. But today, I decided I would go a little deeper and I would talk about doing what I call my morning pages. Yes, Julia Cameron. Julia Cameron. I'll put the link to her book in the description. While what I do now is not exactly morning pages, but that's what I call them because it was this part that has made the huge change in my life. I had to struggle getting this particular video done because it begins with my brother. I only have one brother, Sterling, and I was almost 3 years old when he was born. There's a whole long story, and the only thing that's relevant to what I'm talking about today is that when he was 20, which as it turns out was quite a long time ago, he was in an accident that left him brain damaged. There were other physical damages too, but I am also not going to talk about my mother, but she was an amazing woman. And Sterling had a pretty good life. And one of the things about him is that he has, and still has, an incredibly buoyant, sunny disposition. A couple of weeks before the pandemic hit, Sterling's wife died. And the big question was, what shall we do with Sterling? The solution we came up with, I have two sisters, and the three of us have these frequent morning chats where we become kind of the matriarch of the family. It's a combined effort because we're three very different people, and each of us has our own strengths. The decision was that my husband and I would move in and live with my brother in Charlottetown. He has a fairly decent sized house, and the downstairs is where we set up our living space. And my brother had the master bedroom, and I had the bedroom across the hall from his. My brother likes to get up early in the morning, 5:30, and he would start his day with his routine, which involved the television set. And at first, I would get up with him. It didn't work out well for me. I need a quiet morning. And my solution was to stay in my bedroom with the bedroom door shut. And that's when I started what I call my morning pages. This is not exactly a digression, but it is part of the whole process. And I've had to struggle with figuring this out. But in 1971, my brother was a computer programmer, which was a pretty early start in a pretty dynamic profession. It was during that time he had his accident that basically changed his life. And I think I probably was having some sort of survivor guilt. But you can't stop and take a look at your baby brother, whose life has been destroyed, and make it all about myself. So, like I always do, I just kept on keeping on. I didn't want to think about what he lost, and I didn't want to think about what I lost. So there we are in our 70s, living together. Something we haven't done in quite a long time. And we did have some laughs, a lot of laughs. But I would spend the first couple of hours of my day in my bedroom. It forced me to spend a couple of hours connecting with myself. It took a while, but in that peaceful, tranquil space, in that quiet time in the morning, I got to sort out the things that were in my mind. It gave me a calmness, it allowed me to explore my creativity, and it gave me clarity. And that was the hard part. I've mentioned this before, but I was a ghostwriter, and I had a pretty good time being a ghostwriter. I liked it because I didn't have to be myself. And I really did spend most of my adult life, and that's a lot of time, kind of doing what I felt like was living on the edge of somebody else's life. With clarity, you get to face some of the, not the decisions you made, but the results of the decisions you made. For instance, I was in pretty bad shape physically. I mean, I was just desperate to avoid exercise. 20 years ago, I loved cross-country skiing, and I still love the idea of it, but I wasn't cross-country skiing anymore. I wasn't even walking. That's a discussion for another day. Walking has become a real challenge. That time alone with myself in my bedroom, or more appropriately, in the guest room of my brother's house, I got to spend some time taking a look at how I had lived my life. Here's a picture of me when I was, I think, 13 or 14, along with my kid brother and my baby sister and my best friend since I was 3, Alva Townsend. Actually, the reason I'm showing this picture is because Alva and Sterling were kind of, well, when I read the Calvin and Hobbes comics, I always thought of them. I felt like Susie, and they were Calvin and Hobbes. This scene was pretty much my childhood. I have another sister who showed up later. She really is the baby of the family, but at the time, Helen was the baby. I'm not sure when this picture was taken, but I suspect it was 1961 because early in July of 1962, Alva drowned. That's a story for another time. But those morning pages helped me deal with a lot of the stuff from the past that I had just filed away. And I've never been able to deal with death very well. And 3 winters of doing morning pages, it really took me through some paths I had been avoiding for 50 years. And the change has been huge. It has been tremendous. If you've never tried morning pages, it's well worth the effort because it lets you go to places that you probably are trying to avoid. And what I like about it is first thing in the morning, before I get out of bed, I can have that little conversation with myself. And I probably spend about half an hour, but it lets you sort out what you need to do for the day. And it gives you that meditative moment, I guess you'd call it, where you can actually focus on what is important in your life. I used to scribble out my morning pages in those endless piles of journals that I have spoken about. Now I simply use my phone and I talk into my voice recorder. It's not about perfection, it's about honesty. It's about talking about the things that you avoid talking about because, after all, you're only talking to yourself. Let me know in the comments whether you do morning pages or whether you have ever thought about them, or how you deal with your own need, or how you deal with talking to yourself. Until next time.